I was standing in front of the mirror, pulling the zipper on a soft blue dress I'd saved for something sacred, when my phone buzzed. One new message. Unknown number. Stay away from the wedding. Your future daughter-in-law has a plan. My hands went cold so fast the zipper slipped. You know that feeling when the room is perfectly still, but your heart is beating like it's trying to break a locked door? That was me. Half-zipped, breath shallow, the dress ghosting around my knees as if it suddenly didn't belong to me. I called back. It rang once. A woman answered, older, breathy, like she'd just run up the stairs. "Don't say your name," she said. "Just listen." "Who is this?" I whispered. My voice sounded like it belonged to a stranger. "I can't tell you," she said, "but I know what she's planning. At the rehearsal, and at the ceremony." Her voice faltered. "She's going to make you look like a thief." I sat down on the edge of the bed. The mattress sighed under my weight. I could hear the hallway clock ticking, as if counting down to something I hadn't agreed to. "A thief?" I repeated. "Of what?" "The family bracelet," the woman said. "The one your mother-in-law left you. The one you promised to give your son's bride when the time was right. She knows about it. She wants it. And she wants you gone." For a moment, I couldn't see. It felt like the room had tilted, and every picture frame on the walls was slightly off-center. That bracelet, thin gold, 3 tiny sapphires, wasn't just jewelry. It was the last gift my mother-in-law put in my hand before the hospital lights went dim and the machines went quiet. "One day," she'd whispered, "you'll know who deserves it." I had kept it wrapped in tissue, tucked into the lining of my jewelry box, a secret lighthouse I visited on hard nights. "Why would she do that?" I asked, though the question tasted naive. "Because," the woman said, lowering her voice, "she wants control. She wants to isolate him. A quiet scandal is the fastest way to get you out of the picture. She'll plant the bracelet in your purse, maybe at the rehearsal dinner, maybe in the bridal suite, and then she'll find it. Tears, shock. How could you?" She rehearsed it with a friend. A pause. "They call it a test." "A test," I repeated. My throat tightened. "Of what?" "Of power." I stood up too fast, and the dress swung against my legs like a bell. In the mirror, I didn't recognize the woman looking back. The lines around my mouth deeper, the eyes older, the posture of someone who'd learned to shrink to keep the peace. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because I made the same mistake," she said softly. "I stayed quiet. I'm still paying for it." Another breath. "I'll call again if I can. Be careful. She's smarter than you think." The call ended. The room fell into the kind of silence that isn't peace. It's a pause before a storm inside your chest. I laid the phone on the dresser, palms flat, the way you steady yourself on a counter that isn't yours. Outside, the late afternoon light threw a clean bar of gold across the floorboards. My reflection stood in it like a witness. I wanted to dismiss it. I wanted to label it jealousy, malice, a prank. I wanted to slide the phone under a pillow and pretend I'd misheard. But a memory rose up, small, precise. Last month, when we were choosing flowers, my future daughter-in-law, Lila, had picked up my hand and turned my ring around, almost delicately. "Vintage," she'd said, smiling without showing her teeth. "You must be sentimental." At the time, I thought it was a compliment. Now I heard it differently. I reached for the jewelry box. Inside, the bracelet was cool through the tissue, the sapphires like drops of quiet night. I held it and thought of my son, Armin, who used to fall asleep on my shoulder during long car rides as a boy, who'd ask, "Are you awake?" even though he could feel my hand in his hair. He told me Lila was brilliant, driven, misunderstood. He told me people judged her too quickly because she had edges. He said, "Mom, she looks out for me." I wanted to believe him. I still wanted to. I placed the bracelet in a small velvet pouch and set it in the drawer, then locked the drawer and put the key on the chain with my house keys. The small click sounded like a decision. Downstairs, my sister Farah was arranging rose candles along the dining table for the family who'd arrive later. She glanced up. "You look pale," she said. "Did the dress not fit?" "It fits," I said. "It's the future that feels tight." She laughed, then saw my face and stopped. "What happened?" I told her half. Not the call, not the plan, just a sliver. "I'm worried Lila doesn't want me there." Farah's brows drew together. "You're his mother. No one can erase that." I wanted to tell her people erase mothers every day. Politely, with a smile, using words like boundaries and new traditions, while pulling the rug with 2 fingers. But I swallowed it. I didn't want to stain the air with suspicion unless I had to. That evening, the house filled with voices and the occasional clatter of cutlery as family came to drop off desserts for the next day. Arman arrived last, looking exhausted and beautiful in that way only people in love can look. He hugged me and whispered, "We're almost there, Mom." Lila hovered a step behind him, flawless, the sort of poise that photographs well. She complimented the candles, the soup, my dress. Then, "Is that the bracelet?" she asked lightly, eyes flicking toward my wrist. I shook my head. "I don't wear it much." "Of course," she said, smiling. "We wouldn't want it to get lost in all the chaos." Just words, just air. And yet, something in the way she said lost made the hairs rise on my arms. I felt suddenly like a chess piece that didn't know the whole board. After they left, Farah squeezed my shoulder. "You're overthinking." "Maybe," I said, and listened to the front door latch click in the quiet hallway. A key turning, a line crossed. I didn't sleep. I lay awake and counted possibilities. If the warning was real, what would I do? Show up clutching my purse like a shield? Accuse her and look like the jealous mother who can't let go? Not attend, break my son's heart on the eve of his joy? Each option was a door, and every door seemed to creak with traps. At 3 a.m, I rose. The house looked different in that hour. The furniture soft-edged, the family photos quiet as if they were listening. I made tea and sat at the kitchen table with a notebook, the same one I used to keep grocery lists and little prayers. I wrote one sentence. If there's a plan to strip me of dignity, I will bring my own plan to keep it. I rehearsed the small things. Which bag I'd carry, a clutch, no pockets. What I'd wear, no jacket with lining. Where I'd sit, not at the edges where hands brush by. I decided I'd take nothing to the rehearsal but my phone and a single tissue like every other guest who wasn't hiding anything. If kindness could be used as a mask, so could simplicity. And I would not accuse. I would not point. I would witness. Like the dress hung on my closet door, waiting for the light to find it. At 7, my phone lit up again. Another unknown message. 2 words. Be ready. My fingers hovered. For what? I typed, then erased it. If this was a trap, it staged itself with shadows and half-truths. I needed daylight. I needed facts. The rehearsal started at noon. The hotel ballroom had ceilings so high our voices sounded smaller beneath them. Arman looked tired but happy. Lila was radiant in a white suit and a scent like winter fruit. She hugged me, camera ready. "You made it," she said into my hair. "I wouldn't miss it," I said, stepping back. I kept my clutch open, empty, visible. I wanted everyone to see it was just a shell. We walked through the bows and cues. The planner talked about timing. The photographer moved like a cat, capturing practice smiles. When it was over, we moved to a smaller room for the lunch buffet. White tablecloths, pale flowers, daylight like a blessing pouring in. I chose a seat near the center, not the edge. I placed my clutch on the table and kept my hands folded. I watched. I listened. Halfway through the meal, Lila's best friend, thin, quick, stood up with a little gasp. "Lila," she said, pressing a hand to her chest. "Your bracelet." "My what?" Lila turned, eyes wide and innocent, perfectly innocent in a way that looks practiced. "Your bracelet," the friend repeated, bending toward me, toward my chair, toward my clutch. My clutch, open, empty, waiting. Her fingers hovered over it, and in that frozen second, a fingertip half an inch from the leather, a dozen eyes turning, the air sharpening like glass, I felt something inside me settle. A soft, heavy certainty. This was not a mistake. This was choreography. "Careful," I said gently, my voice carrying just enough. "I wouldn't want you to drop anything into my bag by accident." The friend froze. Lila's eyes flashed. Just once, a quick shudder. From the corner of the room, someone cleared their throat. I turned. By the door stood a woman in a gray shawl, hair pinned back, face pale but determined. She looked straight at me and nodded once, the smallest bow of recognition. I knew that voice before she opened her mouth. It was the stranger from the phone, and she had just walked into the light. The fork paused halfway to my mouth as the woman in the gray shawl lifted her chin and, without asking permission, crossed the room. The chatter dimmed, the way birds quiet when a shadow moves across the ground. Lila's friend, hand still hovering above my open clutch, retracted her fingers in a slow, embarrassed curl. "I'm sorry to interrupt," the woman said, voice low but unwavering. Up close, I could see the fine tremor in her hands, the determined set of a mouth that had learned to hold back 1,000 things. "I'm here for her." She looked at me, and the look carried a promise, or a warning. Maybe both. "Do we know you?" Lila asked, and the way she stood, one foot a little forward, smile calibrated, eyes quick to measure the room's temperature, made something inside my chest turn to ice. She had presence, power, and a plan for what to do with both. "I'll be brief," the woman said. She turned to me as if no one else existed. "May I speak with you in private?" My son, Armin, stood. His protective instinct was so instant it stung my eyes. "Who are you?" he asked. "This is a rehearsal. If you're with the hotel—" "I'm not hotel staff," she said. "My name is Hina." She shifted her gaze to Lila for a beat, only a beat. "And I have information your mother deserves to hear before tomorrow." A tight silence cinched the tablecloth. Somewhere behind me, the photographer stopped shooting. Lila laughed, bright, easy, as if to bat away a fly. "This is awkward," she said. "But we don't entertain strangers during family events. You understand?" I stood, the chair legs sighing against the floor. "5 minutes?" I said. "Near the coat room." "Mom?" Armin warned softly. "I'll be right back," I told him. I touched his sleeve, a small, steady anchor. "Eat." In the corridor, the air felt colder, the lights a little too white. The hotel carpet soaked up sound, so our footsteps didn't exist. Hina led me toward a quieter corner beside a window where the city pressed its nose to the glass. Traffic moving in ribbons, a gull hanging motionless in the updrafts. "I'm the one who called you," she said, without ceremony. "I didn't want to, but I wish someone had done it for me." Her face, in that light, looked both older and younger. There were lines at the corners of her eyes that had nothing to do with laughter. "You said she's going to frame me," I whispered. "Why?" "Because you hold something she wants, and you're standing between her and control." Hina took a breath that shuddered softly. "Last year, my nephew married a girl who moves in similar circles as your future daughter-in-law. There was an heirloom involved then too. A watch this time. Lost during the rehearsal. Found in the groom's mother's purse. It happened fast. Tears, astonishment, a photo taken at just the right moment. Online whispers. The mother-in-law left before the ceremony to avoid ruining the day. She hasn't been welcome since." "And you think—" "I know," she said, and her hand emerged from her shawl, holding a phone. On the screen, messages, cropped, names hidden, but numbers visible. She scrolled, screenshots of a group chat, a photo of a thin velvet pouch with 3 tiny blue stones winking cruelly in perfect light. Text bubbles. "We'll do it at lunch." "Play shocked. Make sure her bag is open." Another. "Call it a test. If she overreacts, all the better." And then, colder. "Once she's out, it's easier to mold him." My throat dried. I knew I should ask where these were from, whether they were altered. But I recognized the bracelet down to the exact bruised blue of the sapphires. The photo had been taken in a room with wallpaper like the bridal suite upstairs. The same milky damask, the same gold-edged mirror. "How did you get these?" I asked. "A friend of a friend," Hina said. She worked with the planner on a previous event. She heard the rehearsal talk, someone bragging about a test last week. The screenshots came after. I blacked out names because I don't want to expose her. She's already risking her job. "You could be lying," I said, not because I believed it, but because honesty tastes better when it's argued with. "I could be," she agreed, and slid one more thing into my hand. A folded printout, the old kind of evidence that makes your fingers smudge. It was a photo, blurry but undeniable, of Lila's friend from the luncheon, the thin one with quick hands, holding my velvet pouch in front of the bridal suite mirror. The timestamp, an hour before rehearsal. The caption, typed into the screen but printed too. "Blue matches the dress theme. How poetic." The hallway hummed. Far down the corridor, the elevator chimed. Somewhere, a door closed, and then opened again like a soft gasp. "What do you want me to do?" I asked. "Not exactly what I did," Hina said, and there was the smallest break in her voice, a fracture mended poorly by time. "I stayed silent to protect my nephew's happiness. It didn't protect him. It isolated him. Silence becomes a boundary they use against you." She swallowed. "Start with truth, quietly. Record if you must. Keep your bag empty. Don't be alone in rooms where accusations bloom. And if they still try, be ready with daylight." "Daylight?" "Proof," she said. "Eyes that can see?" For a moment, I saw myself as if through a camera lens, a woman in a blue dress in a hotel corridor, holding a stranger's phone with shaking hands. I thought of my son's hair when he was little, of Lila turning my ring on my finger last month and calling me sentimental, of my mother-in-law's whisper, "One day, you'll know who deserves it." I exhaled. "Thank you," I said, "for being the voice I can't unhear." "Be careful," Hina said. "She will smile while she moves pieces." Back in the luncheon room, the atmosphere had shifted, subtly as light through a thin cloud. Conversations were slightly too loud, laughter slightly too practiced. Lila looked at me with concern stitched perfectly between her brows. "Everything okay?" she asked, and touched my elbow with the kind of possession that reads as care. "Fine," I said kindly. I took my seat. I left my clutch open, its emptiness a white flag of a different kind. For the rest of the meal, I became a student of small gestures. Lila's friend watched my hands the way a cat watches a ribbon. The planner drifted by twice, her eyes doing invisible calculations. And Armin, my boy, kept glancing between his fiancée and me, his loyalty stretched like cloth between nails. After dessert, when people stood and the room loosened, Lila approached with the practiced intimacy of a daughter who wants you to feel chosen. "Can I show you the floral wall upstairs?" she asked. "It'll be our photo backdrop. I'd love your opinion." Her friend materialized at her shoulder, soft as mist. "It's so beautiful," she chimed in. "If I said no, I would look small. If I said yes, I was walking into the wings of their stage. I thought of Hina. Don't be alone in rooms where accusations bloom. I smiled and said, "Of course. Farah, come with us?" My sister's face said she understood more than I'd told her. "I'd love to," she said, looping her arm with mine. We rode the elevator up. The mirrored walls multiplied us. 3 women in a small steel box, each holding a version of what the future might be. Lila chatted about petals and lighting as if the sweetness of her voice could stick to us like honey. When the doors opened, the suite greeted us with soft lighting and a smell like citrus and steam. There, on a dressing table, sat a perfume bottle, a velvet ribbon, and, breath caught in my throat, an empty square where a pouch could have been. "Isn't it gorgeous?" Lila said, presenting the floral wall, fresh white roses climbing a lattice like polite lightning. "We'll put the family jewelry photo. Here, 3 generations. Imagine it." "I can," I said, and the words tasted like steel. While Farah admired the arrangements, Lila drifted toward a small side table. Her friend bumped my shoulder. Lightly, a "sorry I didn't see you" bump, and my clutch swung on its strap. Nothing fell out because nothing was inside. Her eyes flicked down in annoyance, then recalibrated, quick mind finding a new path. "So," Lila said brightly, turning, "since we're all here, do you have the bracelet? We could make sure it matches the tone. If it doesn't, we'll find a way. I want everything to be perfect for your son." She tilted her head at the last 2 words, a feather-light emphasis that landed like a stone. I felt Farah tense. My pulse beat in my thumbs. "It's safe," I said. "Where it should be. We'll honor it at the right moment, as promised." I softened my voice. "I gave my word." Lila's smile held. "Of course, it's just, sometimes people cling to the past so tightly, they forget the present is asking to breathe." She stepped closer, close enough that I could see the tiny flecks of green inside her brown eyes. "I want you to feel included." "I do," I said. "Right now, I feel very seen." Her friend glanced at the door, at her watch, at me. "We should go," she said, too casually. "The planner needs us." We left the suite as if nothing had happened, which is how some things happen. In the elevator down, Farah's fingers found mine and squeezed. When the doors opened, Armin was waiting in the lobby, phone in hand, concern on his face. "Everything all right?" he asked. "We were looking at flowers," Lila said smoothly, slipping her arm through his. "Your mother has such good taste." On the drive home, the city peeled away in glass and brick and sky. The late afternoon had turned a little bruised, the kind of light that makes people kinder or crueler, depending on what's already in their hearts. At a red light, I took out my notebook. I wrote 3 things. Empty bag. Always. Witnesses. Daylight. When I reached the house, I went to my room and took the bracelet from its drawer. I held it up to the window. The sapphires caught the last threads of sun like tiny wells of deep water. I thought of tradition as a ribbon. Beautiful, yes, but also something you can choke on if someone else is tugging. I laid the bracelet on white paper. I took photographs. Every angle, a close-up of a hairline scratch near the clasp, the slight skew of one sapphire, the signs that make it singular and mine to pass on, if deserved. Then I did one more thing. I slipped the bracelet into a small, clear box with a tiny sensor I use for my own peace of mind when sending valuables to the jeweler. A basic motion alert that pings my phone if the box is opened. Not a trap. A boundary. When I looked up, the window had gone dark enough to hold my reflection like a secret. The woman looking back was still me, but steadier, as if the ground had decided to hold. Tomorrow, they would try to move pieces. Tonight, I was drawing the board. By the next morning, the sky had a strange stillness, too calm for a day meant for celebration. The city outside my window stretched under a pale veil of sunlight, but something about it felt unreal, like the world was holding its breath. I'd barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that photograph, Lila's friend holding the velvet pouch. The timestamp pulsed in my mind like a heartbeat I couldn't shut off. Still, I got up early, dressed quietly, and made myself tea. I didn't want fear to be the first thing I tasted that day. Farah joined me at the kitchen table, her hair tied up in a bun, worry resting in her eyes. "You sure you're going?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "If I stay home, it'll look like guilt. If I go, I'll see the truth unfold myself." She nodded slowly. "And if it's a trap?" "Then," I whispered, "they'll find out I'm not as naive as I look." I put on a pale lavender dress and a simple silver chain. Nothing flashy, nothing that could be mistaken for defiance. My clutch was empty except for my phone and a folded tissue. I took one last look at the jewelry box, locked, the bracelet safe inside its transparent container. The phone buzzed as I was slipping on my shoes. A message from the unknown number again. "Today is the day. Keep your calm. Record everything." The rehearsal dinner was being held in the ballroom again, but this time it looked transformed. Soft gold lighting, candles flickering along mirrored walls, violin music threading through the air like silk. I arrived just as Lila and Armin entered, hand in hand. The room lit up with applause. She looked like a painting brought to life. Perfect posture, perfect smile. If Malice wore perfume, it would smell just like hers. When she saw me, her face glowed with mock warmth. "Mom!" she called sweetly, waving me over. I forced a smile. "You look beautiful, dear." "Thank you," she said, eyes glinting. "I'm glad you came. We wouldn't want anyone thinking we have family drama." Her words were dipped in honey, but cut like a blade. Dinner began. Laughter rippled through the tables, wine glasses clinked, and the air filled with that deceptive kind of joy people perform for photographs. I watched Lila's every move, the way she touched Armin's arm, how her friend never strayed far, always hovering near me, pretending to take photos or check her phone. When dessert was served, Lila stood to make a toast. Her diamond bracelet caught the chandelier light, scattering flecks of gold across the room. "I just want to say," she began, "how thankful I am to join such a wonderful family. Armin's mother raised the most kind-hearted man I've ever met." People clapped. I smiled politely. Then she added, her tone changing ever so slightly, "And I'm especially grateful for the trust she's shown me with family traditions." A ripple of confusion passed through the crowd. Armin turned toward her, eyebrows furrowed. "What do you mean?" Lila gave a little laugh. "Oh, nothing. Just that your mom's been generous enough to pass on something meaningful to me." She glanced toward my clutch. "Right, Mom?" The entire table turned to me. My hand tightened around my glass, but I kept my tone steady. "I'm afraid you must be mistaken, dear. The bracelet isn't for today. Her smile didn't falter, but the air sharpened. "Oh, that's strange, because—" She reached into her small purse, eyes locked on mine. "I thought it already was." When she pulled it out, the world went silent. There it was, the gold bracelet. My bracelet. The sapphires gleamed under the ballroom light, familiar and unmistakable. Gasps echoed through the room. I could feel dozens of eyes slicing into me, judging, whispering. Lila clutched it delicately, as though afraid it might burn her. "I found it," she said softly. "In my future mother-in-law's bag. I wasn't going to say anything, but—" She let out a rehearsed sigh. It didn't feel right to hide it. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. Armin's face drained of color. "Mom?" he whispered. "How—" Before I could speak, her friend piped up, just as scripted. "I saw it too. When she came in, she set her bag on the table. Maybe she forgot it was inside?" I stood, slowly. The chair's legs screeched against the floor. "Leela," I said, my voice low but firm. "Are you absolutely sure you found it there?" Her hand trembled, just slightly, enough to appear saintly. "Of course," she said. "I wouldn't lie." Then I reached into my clutch, pulled out my phone, and pressed play. The speakers crackled to life. It was an audio file, soft, faintly distorted, but clear enough to recognize the voices. Lila's voice, her friend's, the same lines I'd heard before. "We'll do it at lunch. Make sure her bag is open. If she panics, all the better." Gasps filled the room. The color drained from her face. I let the silence stretch until it became unbearable. "Do you want me to continue?" I asked quietly. "Because there's more." Armin's eyes darted between us. "Lila, what is this?" She stammered. "That's not... Someone must have... Enough," I said, not raising my voice, but letting each word land like a nail. "I received an anonymous warning 2 days ago. I didn't believe it until I saw the proof myself. And now, here we are." The bracelet trembled in her fingers. "You're twisting everything. You're jealous. You never wanted me here." "No," I said. "I wanted to see who you truly were before I called you family." I walked forward slowly. "Do you know what this bracelet represents? It's not money. It's trust. It's loyalty. The woman who gave it to me said it should only belong to someone who carries integrity in their heart. I see now, it doesn't belong to you." The room was silent, except for the distant hum of the violin that hadn't yet stopped playing. Lila turned to Armin, her voice breaking. "You believe me, right?" He didn't answer. His jaw was clenched, eyes glistening, not with anger, but disbelief. "Why would you do this?" he whispered. "Why would you humiliate her like this?" Her mouth opened and closed, searching for excuses that no longer existed. Then her phone buzzed on the table. The screen lit up, and I saw a message flash before she snatched it away. But Armin saw it too. His hand shot out and took the phone before she could hide it. He read it aloud. "Did she take the bait?" The words hit like thunder. Lila's face crumpled. "It's not what it looks like." Armin stepped back. "No, it's exactly what it looks like." No one said a word. Even the violinist had stopped. I turned to the planner, who stood frozen by the doorway. "I'd like the hotel to check the bridal suite camera from this morning," I said. "Someone entered my room to take that bracelet. I already informed security." The planner nodded shakily and hurried out. Within minutes, the manager arrived with footage on a tablet. The clip played on mute for everyone to see. Lila's friend slipping into my assigned dressing room at 10:42 a.m., holding a copy of the room key. She emerged a few minutes later with the velvet pouch in her hand. And just like that, the performance was over. Lila's composure shattered. "You set me up!" she cried. "You—" I shook my head. "No, dear. I just stepped out of the script you wrote." Armin looked at me. Pain, guilt, and relief all tangled together. He whispered, "I'm so sorry, Mom." I reached for his hand. "You have nothing to apologize for. Love blinds us all at least once." As I turned to leave, Leela slumped into a chair, mascara streaking down her cheeks. The same guests who'd smiled for her photos minutes earlier now looked away. Before I walked out, I said one last thing. "Lila, if you'd chosen kindness over control, I would have given you the bracelet willingly. But now, I see my mother-in-law was right. Some heirlooms should never leave the hands of those who understand their worth." And with that, I left the ballroom, calm, composed, and somehow lighter. But deep inside, I knew this wasn't the end. Because hours later, as I drove home and my phone lit up again with that same unknown number, a chill ran through me. "You exposed her," the message said. "But she wasn't acting alone." I was halfway up the driveway when that last message appeared on my phone, its white glow cutting through the dark interior of my car. "You exposed her, but she wasn't acting alone." My hands froze on the steering wheel. The night outside was quiet, the kind of quiet that presses against the glass and listens. A chill went down my spine. I looked back at the house lights fading in the rearview mirror and felt a knot tighten in my chest. If she wasn't acting alone, who else was pulling the strings? I parked the car in front of my house and just sat there for a moment. The world felt off balance, like the air itself was waiting for me to open the message's next chapter. I texted back, "Who are you?" No reply. Then, a minute later, 3 dots appeared and vanished. Whoever it was, they were watching, deciding. I went inside. Farah was already there, pacing in the living room, her face a mixture of disbelief and pride. "I still can't believe what happened," she said. "The way you handled that, you were ice and fire at the same time." I smiled faintly, but it didn't reach my eyes. "Something tells me it's not over yet." I told her about the new message. She frowned. "You think there's someone else?" I nodded. "Someone closer than we thought." She hesitated. "Do you think—" "Don't say it," I interrupted softly. "Not until we know for sure." I went upstairs, locked my door, and sat at my desk. My phone buzzed again. This time, a voice note. I pressed play, and a distorted male voice filled the room. "She's not the only one who wanted you out," it said. "Check your son's bank transfers from the past 3 months. Then ask yourself where the extra money came from." The voice ended abruptly. My stomach dropped. It couldn't be Armin? No, not him. He was kind, trusting, but not deceitful. Still, the seed was planted. I opened my laptop and logged into my bank account. My son had joint access to one of my smaller savings accounts, money I'd kept aside for emergencies. I clicked through recent statements. Everything looked normal until I saw it. 3 separate withdrawals. Large ones, each marked with the same recipient name, LH Consulting. Lila Hale. I stared at the screen, my pulse quickening. Why would my son transfer money to her under a fake company name? I needed to know the truth, before my mind tore itself apart with possibilities. The next morning, I drove straight to Armand's apartment. The doorman recognized me and let me up. I found my son sitting at the kitchen counter, head in his hands, wedding photos spread out before him. "Mom," he said quietly when he saw me. "I don't even know where to start." I walked in slowly. "Then start with the truth." He swallowed hard. "You think I knew, don't you?" I said nothing. The silence did the asking for me. He sighed. I didn't know she'd do something that cruel. But yes, I sent her money. She said it was for the venue deposit. She said her father was having financial problems, and she didn't want to embarrass him before the wedding. I frowned. And you never checked? I trusted her, he said, his voice breaking. Every time I asked for proof, she'd start crying, saying I didn't believe in her. I thought maybe love meant not doubting. I walked to the window, watching the city breathe below us. Love isn't blind, Armin. It's seeing the truth and choosing to stay anyway. What you felt for her wasn't love. It was manipulation disguised as devotion. He rubbed his face with trembling hands. I'm sorry, Mom. You were right about her. You always were. No, I said softly. You had to learn it yourself. That's the cruel mercy of motherhood. We see the storm coming, but we can't pull our children off the ship. He looked up at me, eyes red-rimmed. What happens now? I hesitated. We protect ourselves, and we find out who else was involved. He frowned. What do you mean? I took out my phone and showed him the text. Someone warned me, someone who knew everything before it happened. And now they're saying Lila wasn't alone. He leaned closer, reading the message. His jaw tightened. Mom, there's one person who might know more. Who? The wedding planner. He told me something I hadn't known, how Lila had insisted on hiring her own planner, a woman named Serena, despite already having one recommended by our family. She said Serena had handled influencer weddings, but I never met her without Lila around. She always avoided direct communication. My instincts flared. Then Serena wasn't a planner. She was a co-conspirator. We drove to the hotel together, unannounced. The staff recognized us immediately. Yesterday's drama had apparently traveled fast. The manager guided us to Serena's office. She looked startled when we entered, as though she'd seen a ghost carrying receipts. Mrs. Rahman? She said quickly. I was just about to call you. Don't lie, I said calmly. You were about to delete evidence. Armin's voice was quiet but sharp. We know about the fake transfers, the audio, the setup. You helped her, didn't you? Serena's eyes darted to her phone on the desk, as if it might save her. She promised me a bonus. She said you'd be fine, that it was just a prank gone wrong. I took a step closer. A prank that could have destroyed a mother's reputation, a family, my son's trust. That's not a prank. That's cruelty with polish. She broke. Please, she's gone. Lila left last night. She checked out, took her friend with her, said she was going abroad. Armin's expression darkened. Do you know where? Serena nodded, trembling. I heard her say Zurich, something about accounts and lawyers. She said she'd handle the mess from a distance. So that was it. She hadn't just wanted to ruin me. She'd been after something bigger. Our inheritance, our family's assets, my mother-in-law's estate, which was set to be released to Armin after the marriage. And she nearly succeeded. I turned to my son. We can fix this, but first, we clear your name legally. And mine. He nodded, finally looking like the man his grandmother had prayed he'd become, wiser through pain. We contacted our lawyer that afternoon. By evening, the hotel security footage, voice recordings, and the financial trail were all documented. It was over. Legally, morally, and emotionally. That night, I stood by my bedroom window, the bracelet in my hand again. The moonlight caught the sapphires, reflecting 3 tiny blue fires. It no longer felt like just an heirloom. It felt like armor. Farah called. You okay? She asked. I smiled faintly. Better than okay. For the first time in years, I feel seen, not as a mother, or a host, or a woman past her prime, but as someone who fought back with grace. She laughed softly. Well, remind me never to get on your bad side. We both laughed, and it broke something heavy inside me. Later, as I placed the bracelet back into its box, my phone buzzed one final time. Another message from that same number. Now you understand, it read. Some women build storms. Others learn to walk through them without losing their crown. I stared at the screen, tears welling. Then another message appeared. Hina. It was her name, the woman in the gray shawl. She'd been watching not to control, but to protect. I sent back, thank you. No reply came, but somehow I knew she'd received it. I looked out at the quiet street beyond the window. The night was peaceful again, not because the storm had ended, but because I'd stopped running from it. I whispered softly to the stars, as if my mother-in-law could hear. You were right. I know who deserves it now. And when I clasped the bracelet around my wrist, it felt lighter, no longer a burden of proof, but a badge of survival.